Welcome, listeners, to Episode 2 of the Masters of the Forge. I'm glad you could join us today. I'm Adam, and with us we have Snorik.
Hello. And today we actually have that guy that was supposed to be here last time, but couldn't. So, hello, Kamil!
That would be me. Hello there.
Ausgezeichnet, welcome. Willkommen.
Glad to be finally aboard, you know.
It's good to have you aboard, Kamil. I missed you, even though it wasn't like the first time. It doesn't matter.
What?
Yeah, even though it was the first time, I still missed you.
Okay, I get you. Yeah, I missed you guys too. That was a set of real unfortunate circumstances. I don't know if you mentioned it on Facebook or something, but I had a massive water damage here in my apartment. And it resulted in a lot of shenanigans that kept me away from 40k and from podcasting. But now I'm back with a vengeance and glad to be aboard again.
Woohoo! So, what have you been doing, Kamil? Other than dealing with that, since you weren't here for the first episode, why don't you tell us about like your more recent hobby progress and stuff like that, and what you've been doing with the hobby?
I'm glad to. Reaching back 1.5 months. What I'm currently working on would be my Astrospectre Space Marines to expand them to about 3,000 points. I've already got a good 2K painted, and I actually used the Independent Characters Hobby Progress Challenge 214 to commit to expanding the whole thing with a lot of more painted miniatures, and I'm currently working on that. Last thing I finished was a bunch of servitors with a tech marine attached, and I posted those on Facebook too, so if you want to have a look, go there.
Dude, your army is looking very beautiful. I love the colors you've chosen. They work really well together, and it looks like pro work. Nice job.
Oh, thank you very much. That's awfully sweet of you.
Yeah,
and also, I might have not made a lot of hobby progress recently, but I've been keeping up with 40k, and I really gotta say, the Hellbrute data slates really breathe a new life into my interest for my Slaaneshi warband, because that's a set of very interesting rules that finally, from my point of view, make Hellbrutes in a way useful and viable again. And I love everything Dreadnoughty in 40k, so I was actually building some Chaos Space Marine lists on the side, and you might see the consequences of that in future episodes.
Oh, I certainly look forward to some naughty machines of Slaanesh.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna have a try and rebuild one of my ancient metal Chaos Space Marine Dreadnought models into something eye-pleasing. So you should keep your eyes open for that crazy conversion.
And if it's a Slaaneshi Dreadnought, it won't only be eye-pleasing; it'll please other parts of your body too.
Thank you for going there. I always glad to have that.
Snores? Sorry, you're not done.
I think we boxed out Snorri off this convo, yeah.
Snores,
No,
what
I'm
have
still
you
here.
been doing?
Lately, I've been trying to expand my Death Guard army a little bit, and I picked up Typhus and painted him up. Pictures on Facebook again. And once you've done Typhus, and since I have Necrosius from Forge World, they both have the option to take Plague Zombies in various interesting incarnations. So I've also built a bunch of zombies using both Cadian bits, or mostly Cadian bits, with some zombie stuff in there. And I also built some plain old Vampire Count zombies as Plague Zombies, civilian version. And more pictures on Facebook, and I think I did a decent job. Painting those civilian zombies, that was not so fun, because if you want to avoid giving them like that uniform look, so like as if they're a military unit, then you have to mix up colors, try not to get everyone looking the same.
Yeah.
And that is annoying.
First of all, I think they turn out real great. I think those are hands down some of the best plague zombies I've seen done up for 40k. Maybe the reason for that might be that everyone does those sloppily, but yours are you put some honest effort into yours. I don't know.
You should have seen some of the plague zombies some of my friends have put together. I basically just knocked off their ideas, and one of them has an entire renegade Imperial Guard army made up of zombies. That one is awesome.
My grandmother had a saying that she liked. I don't know who she got it from, or it was my great grandmother. She was an artist. She said, she said, a good artist seems to copy a great deal. A great artist does copy a great deal.
Quite possible.
It's true. You learn from you build on the knowledge of others. You don't it's nice to come up with your own techniques and come up with your own ideas, but you can't innovate unless you have a foundation to build on it.
Yeah. That is true.
And everybody, Snorri Skyped in with us doing hobby night last night, and everybody was super impressed by your chaos. Your Nurgle stuff is looking really great.
Yeah, definitely. You really got those technical paints figured out. That's something that impresses me to no end as somebody who has not tried them before.
Yeah, well, those technical paints, I just love them. I started out just using the Blood for the Blood God and the Nurgle's Rot, but lately I've been using Typhus Corrosion and Rise of Rust too. I love those paints.
Yeah, I think Nurgle is a real good opportunity to really use all of those, isn't it?
It is, because anything metal is probably rusted and looking really bad and everything, and just basically just stippling on that Typhus Corrosion and then gently dry brushing a little bit of Rise of Rust on it makes it look really old and badly kept. So weapons, pitchforks, everything, it just looks so much better with a little bit of those technical paints on them.
Yeah, I have some interesting ideas of how to use those in the future, because my army concepts so far don't exactly invite all that rust and goo and blood. But I have interesting ideas, let's put it that way. And we're going to keep you updated about that. But now, Adam, what have you been doing? You're pretty much taking wing towards Adapticon, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right, fellas. Here comes Loopy's hobby progress. Hold on to your butts.
And due to treacherous warp sorcery, Adam has actually been to Adapticon already. Adam, welcome back.
Thank you.
Now, tell us all about it before the Inquisition intervenes.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, hold on to your butts, boys. Here comes Loopy's hobby progress. I went to Adepticon. Now, I had weeks of preparation. I've actually been a little bit remiss in some of my other duties, such as household duties and hobby progress challenge forum duties. So since I've been back, I've been working on both of those things. But my preparation was I re-highlighted 30 boys with 3 highlights. I had some boys that I built and painted for last year's Adepticon, and I actually they weren't orange enough. They came across as very red, so I actually bought some Games Workshop oranges to make my life easier. Even I use Apple Barrel for most things, so I actually bought some GW oranges and did some layering.
So GW is actually selling oranges right now? Awesome.
yeah, some tangerines, some nectarines, that's what I use to paint my models with.
Tasty stuff.
Yeah, and I also bought, last Adepticon, I bought some armor cast muzzle flares, and I added those to all 3 of my Shootaboy squads. There's between 12 to 10 in each squad. The only problem with those is they're metal, so imagine adding a metal muzzle flare to the end of a big Shootaboy.
Yeah, okay.
That's why I use old out of circulation coins on all my icon bearing Chaos Marines, simply to give them some weight where it's actually needed.
Yeah, if I you need to bring some of those kroners with you so I can weigh down some of my boys. Either that or I should fill it with resin or epoxy or something. The bases.
I found that like 5 or 10 cent euro coins work very well in that regard too. I've got some like glued to my old Devastator models that are like metal weapon plastic body.
Yeah, but the problem is the value of those is so low that I don't think it'd be heavy enough to weigh down my models.
Oh, come on. Little jab against Europe, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. I know nothing of the money may actually be worth a great deal, and I just don't even know.
You know nothing, John Fasol.
10 euro cents is about what, $15 at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't even know. I'm American. Listen, I cast aspersions whenever I feel like it. Okay.
All right. So carry on with the Adapticon coverage.
All right. So I built and painted a Warcopter, which is a unit from Imperial Armor 8, the raid on Castoral Novum. I think that's how that's pronounced. I built it out of I got a gyrocopter from some tournament winnings from a local tournament, and I of course kit bashed the heck out of it with some truck pieces, some basilisk pieces, and plasticard, and I painted it yellow and red and rusty, and I brought that as one of my models.
Sounds good. Now, are you gonna upload photos of that to our Facebook?
Yeah, I've already posted some blog stuff. So, but I'll try to remember to comment in the post for this episode with those links again.
Yeah, and due to another instance of treacherous warp magic, those will be most likely online before you listen to this. So, you know.
Exactly. So what else did I do? I built a display table. I actually built a table. So it's a big red table with flocking on it for the team tournament display board. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it now. My wife suggested making a sand table out of it for the kids who visit us once in a while.
Okay, so it's not like Armies on Parade piece of board. It's like a whole table.
Yeah, I had this idea that we could have something with legs and put it on the table to deploy our troops with, that it would be high enough to have clearance of any terrain that's placed, so we could just put it on the table and deploy, and then put it under the table after we were done deploying.
Oh, sneaky.
Yeah, I saw somebody do that at Du Bois GT, but he had really cool extendable legs on his display board. And I'm thinking, and the guys really didn't like it very much, and it was kind of clunky, so we ditched it halfway through. But it looked cool. We got a fairly decent theme score, so
awesome.
So I made that table, and I painted the stage. I actually was able to do that. I emailed Adepticon, and Matt Weeks came back saying, "Hey, yeah, go ahead and use your stage as a Sky Shield landing pad." So that's what I did. I painted some set lists on it. I painted some, painted some little taped X's for people's spots and everything. Tried to make it look as much like a real stage as possible. The backdrop, I actually painted a mural of one of the orcs singing to represent. You go to a concert, they have big screens so people in the nosebleeds can see what's going on the stage.
Wow, you did not half-ass your Adapticon preparations, did you?
No, I try not to. That's the one thing. I know I'm not going to win any competitive prizes, so it has to look good.
That's exactly my line of thinking too in regard to my models.
Just a quick question about that, actually. Does Adepticon have any rules about painted miniatures? Or it's like you can't put anything that's less than this number of colors kind of thing? Do they have those
like
rules?
3 colors minimum or something?
I'm not sure. I doubt they're going to kick you out. I don't think they would kick you out. But if you even have one unpainted miniature, it tanks your score real bad.
Yeah, okay.
So there's an overall score, which paint is part of, and then they have generalship and stuff. So there are multiple prizes at multiple levels for multiple things.
Yeah, so if you're just like the hardcore tournament player, you can probably show up with green plastic because all you care about is getting the rank number 1.
I've never seen anybody with gray plastic. I wish I had the answer for you, but I'm pretty sure if you showed up with an entire gray plastic army, they would turn you away. But if you have like one model, nobody's going to make you tell you can't play.
Well, I guess if you actually go through and go through all the commitment of going to Adapticon, I guess most people who go to Adapticon aren't locals of the area or something. So I think it's sort of a serious commitment for people to go to Adapticon. And if you're going there, I guess you do have the energy to put up a painted army.
Yeah, and even people who are bad at painting, or perceive themselves as bad at painting, a lot of those guys have painting done, or they put forth their best effort.
Which
and
is
you know
totally
what? That's
fair.
exactly. That is everyone appreciates it when someone actually puts forth the effort, either by giving it their best or paying to have someone do it. Everyone loves playing with painted models, and if you put forth the effort in any way, kudos.
Yeah, exactly.
So I also spent a bunch of time conjuring up a mission to play against Carl with. I jumped on Carl's dance card real early. right after he said he was going to Adepticon, so I had a lot of time to try and think of a fun mission, but I'll talk about that later.
So, Adam, how did it go at Adepticon?
Pretty good. This year we brought our dog, Buddy. He's a golden retriever, and he has horrible anxiety about being left alone or being left because I don't like to use the word, but he's a rescue. So he gets very, very weird separation anxiety. So we felt like we had to bring him with us. Either that or Wendy had to stay home, and that's not cool. Wendy's a lot of fun. Wendy's like half of my personality. So
Wendy is his wife, by the way.
Right? Yeah. Sorry, my wife, the greatest wife who ever did live, whoever walked this earth. I went with we usually go with Geek Nation Tours, free commercial. We really like that Geek Nation Tours handles things. Wendy and I are there for vacation. We don't like having to. We like the fact that we pay a nominal fee to not have to worry about a damn thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, like all-inclusive holiday.
Yeah, it's really nice. Now, not all the meals are included, but there's a good reason. That would be a nightmare for Terrace from Greek Nation Tours to manage.
Yeah, and also you would like miss out on a lot of local stuff.
Yeah, you don't have to go to every single event. And another great thing is it's kind of the same group of people with some additions. Everyone, it's not always the exact same group of people, but you tend to see the same people every year, and it's cool getting with them and seeing them again. And they're usually a really cool group of people. I mean, there's a reason why he gets repeat business, because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I actually want to go with him to Japan at some point, but I was like, yeah, let's just keep that a dream because I don't think I'll be able to do that for many years. So
yeah, we'd really love to do the Europe one, so that I'd love to go to Warhammer World and hang out and learn about all the interesting history of countries that are centuries older than mine. Like you go down south, you're like, oh, this is southern United States or Virginia, like, oh, look at these Civil War battles, look at these. Wow, that's a 300-year-old house. That's pretty old. Yeah, no, you go to Europe, like, yeah, this house is like 1,000 years old.
Yeah, we had civil wars like 2 millennia before you.
Yep. So, yeah, I'd love to do that. I'm sure that's a blast.
We totally gotta meet up at Warhammer World at some point, like the three of us.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
Your mouth to my wife's ears, man. Let's be honest. It's not all.
I'm restraining myself from
terrible
commanding on that part. But yeah, I totally get you. And the last time I personally visited Warhammer World was, hold on to your butts, like 1999.
Ugh. Yeah, I really wish I could. We're terrible with flying. But so yeah, Wednesday we had a really cool welcome dinner. A bunch of industry folks talked and podcasters talked. But we had a nice dinner there. No gaming on Wednesday though. It was just a kind of a chill night, meet people night, relax night. But I was up butt early on Thursday for the grand tournament. I'm going to quickly gloss over my list. It was Mad Doc. He's my warlord. I have to bring him. A lot of it's true that he's kind of a millstone around the neck of my army in a lot of ways, but he's my warlord. I have to bring him. He has to be forefront, especially at a big tournament.
Now, a millstone is not only very heavy around your neck, but also great for grinding up. So,
That's true, exactly. You know what? Good point. Actually, he is pretty good for that. So, Mad Doc Chillteeth, DDS. He's a dentist. He's a very rich orc warlord. Now, I for the band, I did knobs for the GT. It's a little more competitive, but I took the Electrorc Mayhem, which is a bus, the tour bus for the knobs. There's 2 squads of boys in battle wagons as well. They're shooter boys. I have Shazo Blitzclaws. Now Shazo Blitzclaws is my Zagstruck counts as. I scratch built him out of knob bits and Docajet bits. The reason he's called Shazo Blitzclaws is that he spent a lot of time fighting against Tau, Ultima Segmentum, and he noticed how some of the Tau were being respected above all others, and found out that they're called Shaso. So that's where he gets that honorific from. He demanded that the other Storm Boys call him Shazo Blitzclaws.
That's just fun.
Sky Shield landing pad, obviously.
The stage, yeah.
Yeah, the stage, yep. And when I played this, I told all of my opponents, if I have models behind the Sky Shield landing pad, you can see them. You can trace line of sight through it. Because that would be totally modeling for advantage if I tried to claim no line of sight behind that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're talking about the pylons underneath the normal model, like the GW1. Okay.
Right, exactly. So I also this is one of my favorite units right now. It's a big mech with a shock attack gun in a unit of zap gun artillery. It is hilarious. There's this big toughness 7 blob of laser guns. It is so dumb and so awesome. I point that at things, and things either die or I get sad face because I rolled 2s on the strength of my weapons. 2 squads of Ludas, which were totally useless, and 2 squads of Gretchen, which are equally kind of useless.
Dude, your art collection is so full of awesome models. You pretty much have to make it a regular feature on our Facebook to, just feature some units and talk about them and your thought process and your hobby shenanigans and everything.
You're right. I should. Yeah, you're right. And especially like the orcs, I've been meaning to like do unit features where I pick a unit and talk about it and tell stories about it. And it's just a time issue. Maybe I should take this opportunity to just do one every week. Just say I'm gonna do one unit a week and talk about its story.
Yeah.
And show the models.
You totally should. I'm pretty much intending to do the same thing for my Astral Spectres because I pretty much like got lore for a single one of those units and characters, and we could like interchangeably do so like in a weekly format.
Yeah.
I would say that, don't include me because whenever I put stuff on the table, they usually just die, so it doesn't really have much of a story to
So
it.
these guys died these guys were killed by a Reaver Titan. These guys were killed by Docket Jets.
Yeah, exactly.
Alright, so I'm going to kind of gloss over the fights in the GT, to be honest. We only have so much time, and it's not really worth going too much into detail. I had three good games, and I had one really bad game. The first game was awesome, even though I made a horrible mistake. Like, I jumped out when my battle wagon got blown up by 3 las cannon predators. I got the boys out and kind of clumped them up, thinking, I don't see any templates. And then the assault centurions in a Land Raider drove over 6 inches, got out 6 inches, and burned them to death. That was pretty much the end of my game, because I did pretty well on one flank, but my whole right flank plan hinged on those boys who got burned to death by assault centurions.
Daw.
Yeah, that guy's list was awesome, though. He had 2 Land Raiders, each with 3 Assault Centurions in them. I've never seen that before. So that guy was really cool. I just was a little butthurt at the end because I was mad at myself for doing that. So the next battle was the one that I was displeased with. The guy had, what did he have? He had Assault Centurions in a Firestorm readout with a Tau buff commander attached to it. And I should have kept all my units back, but he basically just destroyed my battle wagons with ignores cover, las cannons, and then zoomed up with his bikes and killed everything inside. It was the least fun game I've had in a long time.
That doesn't sound like fun at all.
No, it was really, really dumb. So the next 2 games were super fun. I lost this next one too, but we had such a good time. It was another orc player. Like, he looked like I was still okay. I didn't like that last game, but the first game was fun. So but this guy seemed like he was having a terrible time, and I resolved to make it my goal to make sure this guy had a really fun time, and so did I. So we just had a big orc on orc battle, and it was awesome. I don't know how much. I can't describe it much more than that. We pushed forward at each other and just slaughtered. There were a lot of spores were created that day.
Yeah, I can imagine. There's nothing better than actually brightening up some guy's day with a game, is there?
No, yeah, exactly. And it was awesome too, because it was like we happened to be put on a desert board with it looked very orky, like kind of shanty, like desert.
Oh, like Gorka Morka?
Yeah, it looked very Gorka Morka.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really, really cool, and we had a lot of fun. At the end, he actually said, several days later, he saw me and said, "Dude, that was the best game that day I had." He kind of thanked me, and I felt really good about that. It inflated my ego a little bit, which is bad, but it felt really good to have had a good game and given somebody a good game.
So did you tell him that he can totally thank you by forcing all his relatives and friends to like our Facebook page?
Missed opportunity, man. Just a missed opportunity.
Damn it, Adam.
And my last game was against this guy named Jeff. We were fighting for the wooden spoon. So we knew we were both if we weren't in last place, we were really, really close. So we were arguing about who was going to lose the most. So we were, no, I'm going to get the wooden spoon. I'm going to get the wooden. Screw you. You're going to live. Oh yeah, you're going to live. So That was fun. We made a real game of it, of course. We didn't like throw the game or anything.
That definitely sounds like fun. I'm still glad that we didn't make a T-shirt with our podcasting logo to represent.
So it was like another. This is the third Space Marines player I've played. I'm like, oh my god! And there's 2 Thunderfire cannons. Oh my god! Why is this guy in last place? But we had a fight and we promptly tied, thus screwing us both out of the wooden spoon.
Wow.
It's pretty great. At the end of the day, I did much worse than last year as far as overall is concerned. I was like 90 something over 80, between 85 and 95. But my sportsmanship I was in the top like 10th percentile. I got 28 out of 35 sportsmanship. And that's really good. I got 2 favorite opponents, and my appearance, again, was 37 out of 40.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm really pleased with that. So I was like this between 7th and 12th place appearance, like between only 6 people got a better than 37 appearance score, which is fine. 37 is their maximum, and that's what I got last year. I was wondering if maybe sometimes you think you get playing orcs. You wonder if you get a good score, you pull a judge who just likes orcs. If you get a bad score, you just pull somebody who doesn't understand the difficulties of painting orcs. So I was wondering if I could repeat my score of last year with a different judge. So I was really pleased to see I got the same appearance score this year as I did last year. It kind of proves that an actual paint judge will score me consistently, with my paint.
Yeah, now thinking about it, I think you represented our podcast perfectly, because you can have all the fun with background and crazy conversions and ideas and sportsmanship and just being plain fun about everything with the Masters of the Forge here, but don't come here for technical advice.
Yeah.
That's pretty much our stick.
Yeah, it's true. So, I was exhausted. I was super, super exhausted. But the next day I woke up bright and early for my David Annandale interview. It just so happens that David Annandale was going to be at Adepticon doing signings and stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, right? So I that morning I went to the free Wi-Fi spot and slowly downloaded Audacity right before the interview. I was not prepared. I was sweating bullets. It did finally download and I was able to do a test recording. But David, let me tell you something. David Annandale is a really cool dude. He was very understanding of some issues we had getting a room opened up. The hotel was great opening up a room for us. We were just kind of waiting a little while. It was crazy. I mean, it was understandable that we had to wait for the room to get opened.
Now I totally imagine you sitting in a hallway and trying to record an interview, and somebody's just walking past and is all like, "Get a room, you two."
Yeah, right? Yeah, so they let us, the hotel gave us a boardroom to record in, which was awesome. The hotel was very facilitatory. Whatever. They were really good about giving us a room. So, and that interview went a lot. I was really worried about it, and I credit Carl for giving me some really good advice on interviews and calming me down a little bit, because I didn't want to come across as a big fanboy. Not that I'm a huge, his book is the first Black Library book I've ever read, so I don't really have any hero worship of the Black Library authors, but I still wanted to represent the podcast well, and I didn't want to seem like a fanboy moron. So,
and having listened to it, I think you did a very good job, didn't he, Snotty?
Yep.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, guys. And you guys can look forward to that. It's tacked on at the end of this episode,
just before the outtakes.
Yep. So after that, we had Buddha Town. Every year, the Freebooters they rent a bunch of tables in the main ballroom, and we play random games. This is where my regrets of Adepticon come into play. Having done the GT, I spent an entire day playing games with strangers, which I like doing. I love that, but I've started to collect so many friends in the industry, or in the hobby, that I feel like I should have spent more time with them. And I think that even though it's good to meet new people and it's fun to challenge yourself at a tournament, it's more fun to play fun or even friendly competitive games or narrative games with friends, if you have them, then go ahead and do the tournament. And I've proven that my paint is good. I've proven that I can be judged on paint well. I don't really need to prove myself there anymore. And I think next year I'm going to try and spend more time with actual friends and less time with strangers.
Well, there's never enough time for friends, is there? Especially if you're only meeting up for events.
Yeah, it's true. I really didn't spend enough time with the Freebooters, and I think next year, if I'm able to go, next year is I'm going to be remedying that situation. So I had some games planned, one with Carl, one with Jason. So the one with Carl, the listeners will have to go on my blog to take a look at this. Again, we'll link to it when the show gets posted again, so it's easy to find. But I came up with a scenario for him where several weeks before, I sent him a actual snail mail letter from Chapter Master Marnius Calgar, talking about how unfortunate it was that he told me that Tigurius he was bringing Tigurius as his warlord for Adepticon. So it was a message from Calgar to Tigurius talking about, well, it was unfortunate how they got hosed in their last battle with the Tyranids, but he has a way for him to redeem himself. So he's sending him to this planet where there are orcs. There's a big orc problem on this planet, basically.
Yeah, and pretty much judging from the reports, he thought my God, those orcs are led by a dentist, and they are basically a rock band. That is ridiculous. He should be able to handle this.
And then the next week, I sent another letter, and it's packaged with a whirlwind tank. A fully assembled whirlwind.
Okay.
And it's from a tech marine called Dentos Pulveris.
So I get you.
So he said he sends him this whirlwind saying, "All right, good luck in your upcoming battle against the orcs," or whatever. And then just before Adepticon, I recorded almost a puppet show with my orc models, where I recorded a video of Tigurius gloating to the orcs, saying, "We're gonna come kill you," whatever. And I recorded that video, then played it on my computer while I was pantomiming my orcs. So it's like they were getting the message and they were having dialogue, talking. It was really funny. Maybe it wasn't. Okay, it was funny in the fact that I am a sad, sad man.
Maybe it's just because, God bless the push to talk button, but I'm laughing my butt off here, all the time. That is just awesome.
Yeah, so it's Tigurius in the background being all serious, but in the foreground of the orcs are like, who is this guy?
Serious Tigurius is serious.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, the best part is they're watching episodes of Supernatural when they're cut in by Tigurius. It's like, wait a minute. So, and then I send Carl I sent Carl while we were driving. I punched up I wrote the mission while we were driving to Chicago. It's called Supernatural Heresy. So it's the Space Marines versus the Orcs. You roll for random deployment type. The objectives are players take it in turn to each place 2 cogitators on the battlefield. 1 cogitator must be placed in the player's deployment zone, and 1 cogitator must be placed inside their opponent's deployment zone. So basically, while returning from a dreadful mission against the Tyranids, Chief Librarian Tigerius is contracted by Marnius Calgar with orders to make a detour. A small world very near the cruiser's course has been invaded by orcs. While the bulk of the orc forces were easily dealt with by the Imperial Guard, an elite group of orc raiders continue to plague the world. In addition, the orcs seem to have absconded with a stockpile of cogitators containing proof of chaos incursions in early Terran history in the guise of a dramatic presentation called Supernatural. Their heresy must be exterminated.
Wow. That's Ultramarines, all right.
So the Ultramarines get 4 victory points for each cogitator destroyed, and orcs get 1 point for each turn they spend holding an objective. So the orcs are trying to upload the episodes so they don't miss anything, but the Ultramarines are trying to destroy all evidence of the show.
All right.
Yeah, it's very silly. It's not
silly
meant to
stuff.
be super
Silly
serial,
stuff.
So did the Ultramarines start out trying to bribe the orcs into not broadcasting it, but the orcs didn't accept Carl coins?
We did use Carl coins as our objectives.
Very good.
I already have. I have to order. I have to make another order. I've already made 2 orders. I have to make another order. They're very popular.
That is the next Bitcoin. I'm declaring it here and there. Carl coins are the next digital currency. And it's not digital at all. There's like print copies now.
Yep, exactly. So I get there. So the mission allows the Space Marine side to take a free whirlwind, which is kind of a joke on Carl because he gets free tanks when he plays. So in this, the rules actually tell him he can have a free tank.
That's very generous.
Hey, he's probably going to take a free tank anyways, Carl. So anyways, around turn 2, I roll for reserves on my commandos, and I tell Carl to open up the back of his whirlwind, and he's like, "What?" And the whirlwind has been closed with like 8 magnets. And he's having a hard. He pulls it open, and inside, I've got in there glued 2 or 3 orc commandos with a sign on the drop door.
Oh my god!
It says "Surprise, Tiggy."
It's the Trojan whirlwind.
Yep.
My god.
It was so funny. So I deploy all those commandos out of the whirlwind, and we had a good laugh at that.
I can totally imagine. That's fun.
Yeah, and then Carl proceeded to whoop my ass. Like I'm pretty sure I had 0 models by the end of that game, but we had a super fun time. So that was fun, and then I had a game against Jason from the Overlords. Jason and I think, are kindred spirits. We had a really good time. He also, I don't think I won a single game all weekend, but we had a really fun time. He brought his bikes. We were gonna do an American-sized mission. We were gonna do like a 2,000 point mission, but we didn't have much time before dinner.
So the small US game?
Yeah, we were doing a game of American Kill Team, where we were playing 2,000 points. But one thing, he seemed to enjoy my Ludas unit, my assaulty Ludas, where I put a giant squad of Ludas in with a war boss who has slow and purposeful, which confers to the squad, so they can run around, shoot their def guns and assault, which is super fun. That's a much more fun way to play that unit than just sitting in the backfield shooting.
And Jason is kind of the kindred spirit of everyone in the hobby.
Yeah, you're right. He's a fluffy bear, isn't he?
Oh yeah, very much. Did he bear hug you when he met you?
I think so. He didn't like crush me.
No, he didn't do that with me either. But he was like, "Yay!" running up and just like bear hug.
Yeah,
That's Jason for you.
Yeah, no, he's fantastic. Yeah, we had a really good time, and uh, I was really pleased to have had games with those guys. You know, we talk so much, and everybody talks to each other, and it's great to just meet people and have a game with them. You know, you can really get to know somebody when you play a game of 40K. It's a game. It also has, even the strategic elements. You can kind of gauge personality really well, but almost better than having a normal conversation.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can totally tell how relaxed or how stiff or how courageous or like more like cowardly someone is due to his movement on the table.
Right. Yeah, meeting Carl was so much fun. He has a great philosophy on the game, and I think we're very synced up in that, like the whole hobby aspect of things. It was really cool hanging out with the Buddhas. I really, like I said, I really wish there had been more time for more hanging out, and playing games other than 40K, because I really love, talking hobby with the Buddhas and just in general, being rambunctious and rowdy and having a good time.
Yeah, definitely sounds fabulous. Now, is there something else you wanted to add in regards to Adapticon?
You mean the rest of you mean the team tournament?
Oh yeah, there's that too. Okay, it's kind of nice that you did not have more time on Adapticon, because this report would totally blow out of proportion.
Yeah, I think it already has, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, let me just really quickly go into the team tournament. Now, I was playing with Adon from the ICs, Kieran from the Overlords, and gentleman Matt who was also on the tour. Now, we were like, I'm not going to go into too much because I already talked about it in episode 1. We were Cult of the Sonic Temple. Lord Nils Verboten and the Cult of the Sonic Temple, featuring Tuska. That was the name of our team. It was Chaos Space Marines and Orcs. Adon was playing my Orcs. And the other two gentlemen were playing Chaos. We had some good games here. The first game was Taudar, so we won't talk about that game. Other than that, we had a wonderful time. One of my on my bucket list for the tournament was to fly around in the Warcopter with the Mega Knobs and my shock attack gun, and shoot the shock attack gun out of the open topped flyer. And I did that, and then it promptly got blown up and everybody died. But I figured this first game with Tau was the right time to do that. Other than that, we did fair to middling. I was the millstone around the neck of the team. I won one game, and that was with Kieran at the end. Our last game was the most fun. We played, even though it was against Tau Eldar, they were really cool dudes and didn't have like a really cheaty list. And I actually rolled a 12 on my shock attack gun in that game, which was fun. But we had a really good time. It was clearly one of the better parts of the weekend. It's not like the GT where you're by yourself and you're meeting you're hanging out with strangers. With the team tournament, you're hanging out with 3 dudes that you presumably know or at least want to hang out with, and it's more of a social experience. So the team tournament, there's no regrets with the team tournament, because I actually got to hang out with people and that I know and have a good time with them.
Awesome. Now, am I right to assume that we can, like, everyone who wants to know more about your stay at Adapticon can just check out your blog, because there's going to be a lot of articles about it?
Yeah, I have 4 articles on Adepticon with a lot more detail than I'm going into here.
Okay.
But especially pictures of people's models and stuff like that, and the people who were involved.
Alrighty then. By the way, for people who don't care about checking out our Facebook for the link, how
How
edit?
do you find the blog?
Yeah.
It's wogdrillteeth.blogspot.com. So you could just do a Google search for drill teeth with an F at the end, and you can find the blog.
Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty sure that you own the only walk drill teeth out there.
Yeah. So I had a really good time at Adepticon. Thanks to the Adepticon crew. Really quick, my last day after the awards were actually, you guys will really appreciate this, I think. Aaron from the Adepticon, or from the independent characters, he's the guy with the Necron army, Aaron.
Right.
I had a game with him. He challenged me to a game, and I said, "Yeah, let's do it." And we kind of left the awards early because, let's be honest, we weren't going to win anything. So, now I usually bring a table of terrain with me, but I hadn't done that this year. But so tables were being broken down all around us. We went into the pickup game hall, and I was like, "Listen, we're doing this." And we started collecting all the con refuse that was strewn about, and we made like a classic old school 40K game with all the terrain made out of empty bottles and
I've seen the pictures of that.
Yeah,
that's just awesome.
Yeah,
it was so much fun. Like we were Codex Hill and Water Bottle Forest, and it was so much fun. We had a wonderful game.
That's amazing. You totally need to
Yeah.
see those pics, dear listeners.
Yeah, it was so much fun. That was a great capstone to the whole weekend, to be perfectly honest, because that's what it's all about right there. That is exactly what it is all about. And I was really glad to have gone and met everyone, and had a wonderful time. So I hope I get to go next year, when they supposedly are going to be moving dates. So it might be a little difficult for me.
All right, so that was Adam's Adapticon 214 coverage.
Yeah, thank you so much for bearing with me. I hope the listeners enjoy it.
I'm sure about that. It's a great report, all in all. And in a moment, we'll be back with the second part for In the Lore with Death of Antagonis. Stay tuned.
Hey, Masters of the Forge listeners, are you looking to expand your Warhammer 40,000 gaming group?
Do you want to start a 40K gaming club in your area?
Then what better way than to advertise on the Masters of the Forge podcast? And all that we ask of you is that you email us the full text of your advertisement, including the region in which you live, and any contact information people can use to contact you.
We will have one of our many tech servitors read your advertisement on the air, and we promise not to make fun of you.
Though we can't always predict the actions of our servitors, you really can't find good help these days.
No, you can't. All right, let's try to wrap this Death of Antagonist coverage up. Kamil.
Yeah, we're going to continue with scenario number 3. That will be the Ziggurat. Now, in this scenario, we have a number of black dragons being trapped in an ancient Xenos Ziggurat. The planet is Phlebis, and they're fighting their arch enemies, the Swords of Epiphany, Chaos Space Marines. And what we're talking about here is actually a scenario for Special Operations Killzone by Jim Whitlock Jr., who sadly couldn't make this recording. But you can get a copy of the rules and army lists downloaded on his blog named Galaxy in Flames, and you're going to find that in the show notes, like in link form. Now, Adam, would you give us some context of what this battle is about and how it fits into the story?
Yeah, sure. After the Black Dragons see the planet Antagonis destroyed by the Inquisition, eliminating the Doubt Worm, they notice that there is a little spot on the planet that has been untouched by the blast. It's been uncovered a little bit more, but it's undamaged. They go down there with Ledinger and the rest of the crew, and also they go down to this planet with Elias Tennyson, who's the archaeologist that we talked about in the last episode, to find out what's up with this location. Come to find out, it's a map that points them towards this system. Now, they're being called to Aege Mortis to handle a uprising that's happening there and a chaos incursion. Now, there's a big argument about what their duty is: either follow orders and go to Aege Mortis, or follow whoever caused the Doubtworm plague to Phlebas. At great length, Vritas actually sides with Volos, who says that they should go to Phlebas and stop this nonsense before it causes any more problems. Volos is under the impression that Aege Mortis is kind of a feint by chaos, and the real problem is at Phlebas. And Vritas agrees. Now, it's interesting to note that Toharan disagrees, and as does the Inquisitor. But Vritas is in charge, so that's where they go, and they find all kinds of chaos baddies on the planet, and there's a cruiser in orbit. On the planet below, there is a giant pyramid-shaped ziggurat that is basically sits between the shoulders of a mountain range. The planet looks like it's been pretty much obliterated by, it's not a stranger to cataclysms and meteor strikes. It's not a nice place to live. Nobody lives there, but the ziggurat remains untouched.
It's perfect.
Yeah, there's an interesting scene where Volos and his squad of assault troops jump onto it, and they don't actually touch the surface. They kind of hover over it a little bit. It's like a little slippery because it's got a shield over it. It's an interesting way of describing the shield.
Now, outside this big ziggurat, there's just a ton of cultists set up in defensive rings around it, just to keep the Space Marines away, because the Chaos Space Marines, they know they have to open this ziggurat, but they don't really know how. They just know that it has to be done, because there's something in there that they need. But they just need the cultists to keep the Space Marines away for as long as possible until they figure out how to get in.
Yep, and they do wade through a lot of cultists and a lot of ex-Imperial Guard. It's a pretty standard battle outside the Ziggurat. If the listeners want to play a scenario based on that, all it really needs to be is a Emperor's Will, except with just one objective, really, and they just need to push towards the doors of the Ziggurat.
Exactly, but now the main battle we are actually portraying with this scenario is within the Ziggurat, which is the exciting parts when the Black Dragons clash with the Swords of Epiphany. And so this is, as I mentioned before, Killzone scenario, which is basically a skirmish level way to play with your 40k miniatures, heavily based on the rule set of 40k, but fit into a gameplay that might be familiar to you if you have played any of the GW specialists skirmish systems before, like Gorka Morka, Necromunda, or even More Time. So anyway, this is like an interior skirmish level scenario within the Ziggurat, and as you maybe can tell by that description, you can also make use of the Zone Mortalis rules to play this one. But we present it as a kill zone one, and well, like rules wise, it would be about 250 points per side. Using the rules in the Codex Operatives document for Special Operations Kill Zone, which you can download for free. And if you want to stick real close to the action in the book, it is recommended that you take an Aspiring Sorcerer, Standard Chaos Space Marines, and Possessed on the Chaos side. And Tactical Marines and Dragon Claws are recommended for Black Dragons. But if you want to deviate from that, just feel free. Just note that it's quite a cramped environment in there, and bikes of any kinds are not really appropriate for the scenario, although allowed by the rule set.
Yeah, this is a classic, almost trope that you see in a lot of movies and stories, where you have the heroes fighting the enemies over walkways spanning over deep trenches or something like that, such as Star Wars or one of the new reboot Star Trek series. You get a lot of this kind of thing. So this was an attempt to kind of develop a scenario that you can kind of see that in action. Now you can feel free to take or leave any of the special rules that we use here and use it for your own games.
Yeah, and well, Killzone is pretty much perfect for games of that kind, because you might have heard out of this that we are suggesting a very dense terrain and a very three-dimensional terrain for this game, and Killzone is just perfect for that because you move those models individually. And you have you battle it out on a like manageable scale, so it doesn't get too convoluted. And playing this on a squad level would be a bit of a mess with all the movement you have to do. But when treating models individually, it turns it into a very tense, like very proactive gameplay.
Yeah. So the situation here is that the Space Marines are now fighting their way down into the bottom level of the Ziggurat, where the Chaos Space Marines are already at. And this is really easily represented by, you can almost play this on a 2x2 if you want to, just to make it super cramped, but that's up to you. But really, playing it multi-level in different heights, that's the best way, because they can actually jump up and down.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so this table is set up in, like we were talking about, multiple levels with ramps and bridges going across. There are a multitude of ways you can represent this, which we'll talk about later. You basically start off in corners opposite each other, and one of the special rules of the scenario allows the Chaos player to infiltrate D3 models, so that represents them ambushing the Imperial units as they come in.
Exactly. Now, it is highly recommended that you, of course, set up the terrain before people pick sides. That's pretty much a given. But in this case, we would recommend like a consensual deployment of terrain, because if you use a you-go-I-go method for it, it might lead to a lot of complications in terms of leaping from terrain piece to terrain piece and so on. So just make sure ahead that you have a tight battlefield where models can actually move around nicely, and then start seeing who gets to place where and so on. So this ties directly into the special mission rules. And that would be the leap thing I mentioned. And models without the jump movement rule may leap from scaffolding to scaffolding or to the floor, as long as the model travels only 4 inch. Otherwise, the model must walk up and or down in according to the regular movement rules. And also, night fight is not used in this scenario. That's pretty much a given, because it's in an interior setting, and well, there's no sun to raise or go down or whatever.
Yeah, I think this rule really helps keep the action moving. It kind of sucks when you kind of get stuck on a level and can't move around. But when you're a centuries old space warrior, you probably should be able to jump down one level without
Genetic
dying.
Superman. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and that's what I meant before with C2, the terrain offering plenty of possibilities to leap when you place it, so that it doesn't, that the gameplay gets fluent.
Right.
So game length would be 2 turns after a player completes the primary mission, as per the Killzone rules, and the victory conditions would be kill points as a primary mission. Secondary and tertiary missions are drawn as normal according to the Killzone rule set.
Yeah. Now that's a cool thing. Yeah. Go ahead.
There's really interesting parts is that you use a deck of cards, so everyone has a primary mission. It's the same for everyone, but the secondary and tertiary missions are secret. Only you know them. But you have to write down, say, you have to have one guy survive, and you have to write down on the card or somewhere which guy it is. And if he survives, you get bonus points. And they can be worth a lot. So you can lose the game on kill points alone, but if you're lucky, then you have accidentally denied your opponent both secondary and tertiary. You have tertiary. Hey, you won after all.
Yeah, and that makes for a very tense game because you keep second guessing your opponent's secondary and tertiary missions based on his behavior.
Yeah.
It's just a whole another tactical level to play the game on. We really like that.
Yeah, and even like a lot of the secondary and tertiary missions rely on objectives, so even in a kill points mission you have objectives. They just do different things. Like, for example, I just want to give one example of one of the special tertiary missions that might work with this scenario. Sabotage. Your team has been monitoring enemy activity and may have found a way to sabotage an unguarded target of interest. In order to successfully complete this mission, you must destroy 2 objective markers with the following profile: toughness 5, wounds 2, not including any marker relevant to your own primary and or secondary mission objective of this game. So it's really interesting that you can just come up with all these secondary ancillary objectives which have an effect on the game, but your opponent doesn't know exists. It's kind of like Malifaux in that, where you could conceivably score a lot of points and not even touch the primary objective.
Definitely. And seeing that this is the first of the 3 missions we have presented so far, which doesn't require any specific kind of, model or gameplay style, and is much more about, fighting, letting those two war bands fight on a certain kind of terrain with a certain goal. You're of course totally invited to try this out with other armies, if it pleases you.
So there's a lot of things that you can do to represent like skyways, walkways, platforms in your games. You can use any of the old what's the name of the old GW game?
Necromunda?
Yeah, there was some terrain that came out for Necromunda that could be good. Not only that, you can use the Dead Zone terrain that came with the Dead Zone kit, which if you're interested in this kind of game, you should probably look into, because it's pretty cool stuff. You could also use your Terraclips if you're a Malifaux player. They're not exactly the right thing to use for this, but you could get a good approximation.
Yeah, you have something that's been popping up on eBay a lot lately. Also, laser cut wood.
Mm-hmm.
Comes in all shapes and sizes. You can maybe cut your own if you feel adventurous.
Yep, my buddy Lathan is doing a project. The Kickstarter will probably be over by the time we publish this, but he's doing laser cut skyways, which are exactly what you would use for this kind of thing.
Can you drop a brand name or your website URL for that in case people are interested and want to check it out?
Yep, sure. It's Burn-In Designs. It's just www.burnindesigns.net. And they have all kinds of cool laser cut terrain that you can use to tell your stories on the tabletop.
Awesome. Now, I wanted to drop another alternative in here, something I'm rather fond of, because a company named Pegasus Hobbies does different brands of hard plastic modular, like walkway and staff-holding terrain that would be perfect for this scenario too. They're calling it platformer and hexagon gaming accessory sets, and they're also quite cheap. So you can check out those under PegasusHobbies.net.
Wow, yeah, those are cool. Look at those. And that is cheap too. That's nice.
Yeah, I've been pretty much buying from them and using that stuff for like 10 years now, and they're very consistent in terms of quality. I like those.
Oh, these are the guys that make the chemical plant. I really want that chemical plant real bad.
Now, did I mention that I think I mentioned to you guys that the power plant would be quite perfect for a void shield generator as a source of converting bits if you want to turn some other piece of GW terrain into that, or just base your own conversion on it.
Yeah, take that, you stupid people who bought the $1,000 eBay version of the Void Shield generator.
Come on, we don't offend people on air. We do that off air.
Oops.
Alrighty, so I think that's about it in terms of scenario number 3 and exciting terrain opportunities you get from that.
I really hope people try out this method of playing 40k, because Killzone is a really nice game. It's got a lot of facets to it. It's a lot more malleable than the GW offerings. Like you don't buy entire units and split them up. You buy one model here, one model there, and you can really build a very diverse force to play with.
Yeah, it's just intended to, or rather perfect for just buying a dozen of different models that just appeal to you, and like having the opportunity to use them on the tabletop in a different context that still very much feels like 40k though.
Yeah, and isn't that what we're about? Like we're our whole thing is trying to play the game in different ways, or playing the game how you want to play it. So I really hope people take a look at that.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that some people are now thinking, well, this could be done with Kill Team, couldn't it? The good old Kill Team scenario in 5th edition, which was basically 200 points of whatever and put it on the table. They move as independent characters and, hey, have fun. But Killzone is a little bit different, because Killzone actually has some rules, because 200 points you could just put a couple of Terminators on the table in Kill Team. You can't just put a bunch of Terminators on the table with Killzone, because there are restrictions on how much you can take of different things.
Exactly, but those are very intuitive, and have some exceptions. For example, exactly for elite troops like this. Like, I think last time I checked out Killzone, there was a possibility to put an all Terminator strike team on the board, but then it would have to be all Terminators or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they give Jim's rules here give you leave to do a stylized force.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely perfect for checking out a model line that just smiles at you, but you are not even sure if you want to do a proper allied detachment for your 40k army out of, but rather just, cherry pick real cool models, do some real cool conversions and play with those.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is a amazing point, because if an army is tickling your fancy and you have hobby ADD and you want to build and paint some of these, a kill team list is a great way to start it off.
Yeah, and it's also a good point to get into it, because Jim Whitlock Jr., the writer of Killzone, is a very good friend of ours who's also working behind the scenes with us, and I'm sure we're going to reference Killzone much more often on this podcast.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Especially considering a lot of the books and stuff. If you want to recreate, or if you want to do a scenario similar to what's represented in the books, a lot of those are kind of Killzone or small team oriented.
Yeah, Space Marines work in groups of 5 or 10, and that's perfect for Killzone.
Yeah, that's just the right size for destroying an entire planet of people. apparently.
Yeah.
You want to move on to scenario 4, guys? So, in the fourth scenario, we're talking about the events that happen immediately after Phlebas. Now, Phlebas, at the end of the battle in the Ziggurat, the Black Dragons can celebrate a very asterisked victory. Basically, even though they destroy the Chaos Incursion there, a clarion call goes out thanks to a warp tainted device at the bottom of the Ziggurat, and also they lose their captain. When Toharan is raised as the captain, he sends them back. He sends the chapter to Agi Mortis to quell the uprising there.
And that's basically what he always wanted to do, but wiser minds told him he was wrong, and it's another nail in the coffin for this guy's sanity.
Yeah, the way that the Inquisitor has been grinding into his mind how everyone who's been blessed, so to speak, is actually horribly tainted, and it's up to him to save the Black Dragons and make everyone see how wrong they were about the taint being a blessing.
Yeah.
And he'll do whatever it takes to prove that through his own success, because he's not as tainted as the rest. So he wants to use his own success to show that it's people like him who are in the right, and he also wants to show that he himself is the one who's capable of doing it. It's very arrogant.
Not very Space Marine-y.
No, and he really starts slipping here. It's his decision. It's not what the right thing to do is. It's him. It's his right, and it's his will that he's going to impose on everyone. And things really develop from there.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, what we find at Ag Mortis is a hive world that is bloated beyond belief in terms of population density, and leading to symptoms of civilizational collapse ultimately. And so it is fruitful ground for the Sons of Epiphany.
Swords.
Why do I keep saying sons? I don't get it.
Well, they're kind of like Thousand Suns. They use a lot of They use magic. They're bright. They have bright, shiny armor.
Now, actually, from their golden perfect stuff, I sort of got an Emperor's Children vibe from them. But I guess that's up to you how you interpret it.
Right. Now, that is interesting. These Swords of Epiphany guys, when they first show up on Agi Mortis, everyone thinks it's the Space Marines who have come to save them.
Yeah, these are the guys with the well-kept, lovely armor with the gold trim, even though it's sort of a weird gold, because as golden as it looks, it's like it's sucking the light out from around it, and everyone just gets a creepy feeling from just looking at it. But, these people, they're so miserable, they don't really care.
Yeah, it's definitely an example of tainted perfection, what they've got going on. And they're a stark contrast to the Black Dragons, who are not your go-to Space Marine chapter in terms of purity and, just the feelings they evoke within a population that comes across them.
Yeah, and I think the Swords of Epiphany really hammer home the whole dichotomy theme of the whole book, where nothing is as it seems. Every character that you meet could harbor this dichotomous personality, and the people of Agi Mortis really fall for it, because their lives are so miserable, and they know that they are of low worth, and to have these Space Marines come and as their saviors is something that they find hard to resist. And when the Black Dragons show up on Aegis Mortis, they find that there are a lot of people who have started following Chaos.
Yeah, and the lines are blurred because Chaos has a lot of cultists and PDF troops on their side. Black Dragons drop in and start to amass a loyalist party, but the lines are very muddled along the way. It is never a clear-cut battle between those in those densely populated streets in that hive.
Right. Okay, so in order to represent these clashes, these initial clashes on the streets of Aegis Mortis, we've come up with an interesting couple of scenarios. The fifth scenario is actually a large apocalypse battle. So scenario 4 is meant to be played among a group of friends leading up to that apocalypse battle. So you get as many of these scenario 4 games played as possible, and whichever side ends up with the most victories will have a small advantage in the apocalypse battle. And this scenario specifically represents the harrowing street fighting between the forces of Chaos and the Black Dragons and Space Marines. Black Dragon, Space Marines, and the Imperial Guard. So you guys want to get us started off on the forces? All right.
Yeah. Each side can build a 2,000 point army, so you can have 1,000 point doubles if you want to. That would probably be one of the more fun ways to play this, because they aren't really as coordinated as you would like to be. Even the Chaos sides, they're just a bunch of cultists running around doing whatever they think that the other guys want them to do. So it's not like a allied contingent at all here.
Exactly. So pairing Chaos Space Marines and Space Marine players, each with the Imperial Guard, works the best here.
Yeah,
Indeed.
It really does.
So this will be a Cities of Death type scenario, lots of buildings and everything. So keep that in mind when you make lists. Doing big tanks and everything might not be very smart. You actually have to be mobile and hopefully not bogged down with artillery, for example, would be kind of dumb in this, because artillery doesn't really work too well in this kind of city.
Yeah, I agree, and it kind of decreases the spirit of this scenario to take artillery. The point is to gain ground with troops and take over the city, not to pummel with barrage. These are buildings.
Exactly, that already happened before. So you have a very close quarters oriented terrain setup, densely populated with urban terrain. And now for the force selections, for the forces of Chaos, the Chaos player selects his forces from Codex Chaos Space Marines and Codex Imperial Guard, or maybe you do a doubles pairing, as we mentioned before. And the Chaos players are encouraged to use as many cultists as possible in this scenario. And with Chaos being what it is nowadays, I think that doesn't pose much of a problem. Now, the only Lords of War, on the other hand, allowed in this scenario are Baneblades on the Imperial side, and thus also allied into the forces of Chaos when they're being paired with the Traitor Guard.
Yeah. Now, the forces of the Imperium have a similar kind of setup. You must take Codex Space Marines using Black Dragon's chapter tactics, as discussed in the previous episode. So if you want to play this using Space Marines, then you would have to do Codex Space Marines, not Space Wolves or Blood Angels, Dark Angels, because this is just vanilla Space Marines. And you use the Black Dragon's chapter tactics, as discussed in the previous episode. And you can pair this with Codex Imperial Guard for the most fluff-oriented solution. The Black Dragons shouldn't take any vehicles other than drop pods in this list. And that's simply because the Black Dragons, they don't have a homeworld, so they don't really have too many facilities to take care of vehicles, so they don't have that many.
Yeah, I didn't. I was thinking, we don't want to totally restrict people, from playing the Black Dragons and not and if they wanted to collect Black Dragons, not having vehicles, but they really don't use them. We didn't add that to the chapter tactics, but Black Dragons really only use drop pods and flyers. They don't really go for tanks.
Yeah.
Exactly.
While the Black Dragons don't really have access to much when it comes to vehicles, the Imperial Guard are more than welcome to take all the vehicles they want because, well, they probably have a nice big garrison of everything on the planet. It's actually considered to be a really good recruiting world for the Imperial Guard simply because unemployment is astronomical on this place. So the hell that they live in is probably not that much worse than being at the receiving end of an orc charge. So they probably have the materials there.
Oh dear, a carpet of orcs is coming towards me. Well, at least I'm not on Aegis Mortis.
Yeah, it really is kind of that bad on this planet. And to round it off, the only Lords of War allowed in the scenario for the Imperials are Baneblades and Thunderhawks.
And once again, everybody's free to pick and choose whatever rules they want to use for their own scenarios.
Sure. Now, having finished off the forces involved, the battlefields would be a 6x4 board for each pairing, and it should be densely covered with urban terrain, just like intended for cities of death. And we recommend to play this scenario actually at your local game store and have those running parallel because that seems to be the most fun way to approach it from our perspective, because you will need plenty of urban terrain, and you shouldn't hesitate to also misuse other objects as line of sight blocking buildings, just to create a very dense city fighting environment.
Yeah, it's absolutely important to have as many buildings as possible for this mission. Simply due to not only the narrative of the actual novel, but also for the special rules of the mission, which I will start off with right now. For the actual mission, you would just roll a random mission as normal. That's fine. It's understood that this battle or this almost war is on a lot of fronts throughout the planet. So a lot of things are happening. Objectives are being grabbed. Enemy units are being destroyed. But one of the special mission rules is nowhere to hide. During this scenario, buildings may be targeted for shooting and assaults, even if they are unoccupied. Also, due to the close nature of the terrain and the enormity of the buildings, the blast radius of a detonation is increased to 1d6 plus 6 inches, and models take strength 5 hits instead of strength 4. So this represents like the funneling of the blasts through tight quarters. That is a great, that will cause the strength of the blast to be much worse. Then we have Booby-Trapped Buildings. Both sides of the conflict have sabotaged the neighborhood. Starting on turn 3 and every Imperial turn thereafter, the Imperial player may destroy a single building of their choice as if it had suffered a detonation effect. Starting on turn 4 and every Chaos player turn thereafter, the Chaos player must detonate a random building. So this represents the Imperials using the buildings to destroy hordes of cultists, and the Chaos actually destroying buildings in an attempt to corral the Imperials in a certain location. That brings us to the last mission rule, which is ruin buildings. Whenever a building is destroyed, instead of just leaving it there, go ahead and replace it with a ruin instead, because these massive buildings are just falling into the streets, blocking the way of the troops moving through them. So even if the ruin is bigger than the building that you destroyed, go ahead and do it, because that's the intent here.
Yeah, feel free to have fun with generously placing, piles of rubble and craters around a ruined building if you have those too.
Yeah, and if you want to, you can decide whether you want to have the ruins as impassable or usable terrain, because in the book, we're talking about huge buildings, definitely impassable in every way, because, well, only assault marines would be able to jump over these ruins.
Yeah, and since they're a lot of the black dragons, man, they can just hang on to the side of the building with their claws because they're that badass.
Definitely. Now, the victory conditions for the scenario would be simply that whichever team gains the most wins gains a distinct advantage in the upcoming scenario 5, Concord at Hill. And if there is a tie for wins, you just use the total kill points for both teams as a tiebreaker.
Yeah, I had some local guys playtest this scenario, and they had some good fun. But boy, oh boy, those Strength 5 blasts, that makes for a quick and bloody game.
So, on to the big one on this planet.
Oh, yes.
The scenario number 5 is simply called Concord at Hill, and it is, for those who have seen the movie Hamburger Hill, this is the 40k version of that.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Do you guys mind if I read the quote that I found for this? Because it is one of the best examples of a horrible, horrible thing happening, like a cataclysm happening in the 40k universe. So there's a plasma factory ship that comes into orbit of Aegis Mortis, which hasn't been seen in a long time. Well, it turns out that it's been commandeered by the forces of chaos, and it just barely misses detonating in the lower atmosphere. Instead, it detonates in the upper atmosphere. The Furies had descended upon Aegis Mortis, and none would stand before them. On the ground, the Furies first came as a light. It was a ripple, solar bright, that swept across the city. In its wake, the clouds boiled. They became rage. Lightning exploded over the entire firmament, arcing from cloud to ground. It was electric judgment come to condemn all. Thunder and wind were the same god-throat roar, so loud there was no room left in the world for the screams of the judged.
That's so heavy metal.
Seriously, dude, like man, this guy, like I was saying in the last episode, very simple, common language throughout, and then every once in a while there is this descriptive paragraph that rips your eyeballs out.
So this is pretty much the plan that Cardinal Nassoon was hoping for. He was hoping now he would actually have gotten the cruiser all the way in so that it could blow up and do even more damage, but, he's happy because this has caused more chaos, so it's bigger diversion for what's actually his plan.
Yeah,
yes.
That's right. Yeah, he was really hoping to strike a more mighty blow, but I think he seemed pretty pleased by it regardless.
Yeah, so now we've got the Battle of Concord Hill, and this one, as we mentioned before, is a large apocalypse battle for that very strategically important position. The structure itself is a colossal manufactorum standing atop the world's most dominant feature, which would be the peak of an enormous mountain. And it's covered with eons of construction, but it's still got a natural foundation underneath. And it's like the standout position in this battle, and it must be taken at any cost.
It is the biggest manufactorum on the planet, so it's super important. Anyone who holds it will have a distinct advantage in any kind of conflict in this region.
Who else loves the description of this place? Because it is super grimdark.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Because of the high unemployment rate on the planet, people are lining up in long, long queues, trying to get in to do a little work and make a little money. And if they get in, they're so happy that they work and work and work until they fall asleep because they just simply cannot stay awake for any longer. Then they wake up and basically chastise themselves for having sinned by falling asleep at the workplace, and then they chant more prayers, work more, and fall asleep again maybe, and they keep doing this until they simply just fall over dead from exhaustion. And the people in the factory, it's like the overseers, they just take the corpse and throws it out the other end. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah.
And guess what? And you know what? And the most intriguing thing to me about what else comes out the other end is the completed like objects that they're building.
Yeah, the
Like
products.
they actually like the stuff they're building. Nobody even knows what use they have anymore, so they just throw them out, and they just keep on getting raw materials, building crap, and throwing it away. And they just think this is the greatest idea. It's the most ultimate government ditch digging project I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate STC gone wrong scenario where they actually don't even know what to do with the things they manufacture, but it pretty much became a cult of manufacturing that thing, whatever it is.
Oh, that's a really interesting thought, man. It's like their worship. Ooh, this might be this. Oh, maybe David Annandale is making a comment about capitalism in the world today. People worshiping at the altar of this useless construct.
Pretty sure. I mean, I don't want to make any too topical political comments here, but that does distinctly remind me of a few industries in like the first world that are just, being kept running for the sake of providing people with employment, for the sake for them to consume and keep economic growth going, but without really providing a necessary service.
Yeah, I'm not making a personal comment about it. It sounds interesting. It might be a theme that he's going for. Very interesting. So the people playing in this, you could even. I think the best thing to do is everybody takes the same lists they brought to the fourth scenario and use it here, or even try to add some other things if you're interested. It really doesn't matter. It's just a point to get together as friends and do a big apocalypse battle, with the theme being, the ultimate giant, flag on the hill type scenario. The idea is to bring about 2,000 to 3,000 points each for about a 12,000 point per side game, with the forces of chaos taking the same as before: Chaos Space Marines, Imperial Guard, and as many cultists as you can. It absolutely try to bring as many just warm bodies not wearing armor as possible.
Same as before, only super heavies allowed. On the Chaos side would be Baneblades, and Baneblades and Thunderhawks for the Imperial side. Now, for the Imperial side, it's pretty much the same. Black Dragon, Chapter Tactic, Space Marines, Imperial Guard, and the new units presented in this very supplement, except for Volos and Cithano, because they are kept up elsewhere. And as before, you shouldn't take any Space Marine vehicles except for drop pods. And the Imperial Guard is very welcome to do so. Now, one special rule in terms of the force composition of the Imperium would be that on turn 2, a squad of 50 conscripts, along with Canoness, Cithano, and Bolos, arrive from reserve from any table edge or side that the Imperial players desire. That's your cavalry, if you want to put it that way. And they may assault on the turn they arrive from reserve. At the beginning of every Imperial player turn, any unit of conscripts that both of them have joined regain 2d6 conscripts, just representing how their presence inspires people to join the ranks of the Imperial Loyalists to drive away Chaos and their cultists from Concord Hill and beat them off their world.
Yeah, Cithano is freaking awesome. She comes riding in, and she's something about her mask.
Yeah, she's a walking idol.
Yeah, she is such a badass.
Definitely.
She walks around and she's projecting this message to pretty much everyone on the planet, causing them to join her and repent.
Exactly, and that's also why Sethino and any unit of conscripts she joins have the Crusader and Zealot special rules in this scenario. It's such an awesome scene, how she's basically, she descends like a living saint, honestly.
Yeah, she is the ultimate, like, she is really the best character in this book, in my opinion.
Yeah, and she's not so much inspiring people to come back to the side of the Emperor. She terrifies the crap out of them.
That too. Yeah.
That is the best part. The best part is she's giving them a chance to repent by dying for the Emperor.
Yeah, basically she uses the exploding plasma factory that's causing basically a hurricane and lightning and all kinds of horrible weather, and the dragon's claws are jumping around with just horns and spikes and everything, just flaunting it, trying to look as awful as they can. And she's basically saying, this is the wrath of the Emperor made corporeal. You have sinned, you will pay the ultimate price. And as much as some of these guys hate to be killing civilians, they do so quite well, just to do their worst and scare the most people back.
That shit
Exactly.
works too.
And that's the point where the results from Scenario 4, or rather the multiple games of Scenario 4 you played by that point, come into play. Because the winner of the overall winning faction of the fourth scenario receives additional support from the people on Aig Mortis. 2 units of 50 conscripts each begin the game under the control of that faction, and if they are not under the control of the Imperium on the turn Sethino arrives from reserve, the canoness words, as we described before, begin to sway them. On turn 3, their weapon and ballistic skills are reduced to 1 as long as the canoness lives, because they are scared less. On turn 4, if she's still alive, any remaining population of Aig Mortis turn back to the Emperor. And if they had been joined by any enemy characters, they are considered engaged in close combat with that character. And these models may not start the game in reserve.
Yep, and this is going to require a lot of models.
Yeah, a metric ton. I mean, seeing with that there's plenty of Imperial Guard players around, and Chaos players normally have plenty of cultists available from the starter set too, like Dark Vengeance. We think it's manageable, but if you don't have that raw mass of models, feel free to just proxy.
Yeah, anybody with orcs.
Yeah, you can have fun too. Now, for the battlefield, sort of a rather simple deployment, because we've got a Chaos deployment zone 3 feet across, an Imperium deployment zone 4 feet across, with Concord hill mostly on the Imperium side, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, and there's the only thing you actually have to keep in mind is or that's rather important, is that the no man's land between deployment zones should be 12-inch.
Yep. This is like a 8-foot by 12-foot table, so basically 4 by 6s pushed together.
Yeah,
and the terrain is laid out along pretty much the board edges, with Concordat in the middle, and the Chaos deployment zone also has some buildings and ruins in it. All right, so as normal, you do roll off to determine who goes first or chooses to go first and deploy first, but on the first turn, the plasma freighter in Excelsis explodes at the edge of the atmosphere above Aig Mortis in the beginning of the battle. After deployment is over, the equivalent of a 16-foot diameter blast template is placed over the center of Concordat Hill. This blast is so huge it even hits units that are in reserve. The owning player will allocate the wounds as they see fit for these units, and the template has the following profile. Range, not applicable, obviously. Strength 3, AP dash, 16-foot blast, barrage, ignores cover. The player who loses the least number of models immediately seizes the initiative if they are not going first already.
Which is just fun. a very fluffy way to just go into the battle. There's been that huge explosion in the stratosphere, and people on all sides died from the rain of plasma and debris and everything, and that is basically like the opening shot of the battle, and from there it just goes, crazy.
Yeah, I think this is one of those rules that a master of disaster of another apocalypse battle can steal or lift this little rule up and use it for their own scenarios.
Yeah. And then again, Chaos gets the beset on all sides special mission rule. And the forces of Chaos may arrive from reserve from their own table edge and either of the two table sides, like the long edges. So the victory conditions for this would be the faction with the largest number of models within 12 inch of the base of Concord Hill at the end of turn 5 wins the battle, because this is how you play a King of the Hill game. And that's pretty much it for this apocalyptic battle.
It's important to keep rules simple when you're dealing with so many people and so many models. You don't want to go too crazy, but having that explosion in the beginning adds some fun to it.
Yeah, make sure to make big, awful, ridiculous noises when the battle starts.
Yeah, absolutely. It needs to sound like the Furies descending upon Agi Mortis. Or you might also want to try actually cutting a 16-foot blast template out of paper. How great would that be?
It's like a blanket. Come on.
Yeah.
I think you're going to need something heavier than paper if you want to do 16-foot.
Yeah, but once again, the Masters of the Forge are a non-getting stabbed by your wife in the face podcast. Do not, under any circumstances, take her good sheets and cut them into a 16-foot wide large blast template. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. We needed that.
Definitely.
So, now we're at the last scenario. The lead up to this scenario is kind of weird, because throughout the book, the Chaos Marines have been doing weird little things here and there. It's a little bit like the 13th Black Crusade being the last of a series of incursions that have had a very specific purpose that no one really knows about except the guy who's behind it. And in this case, Cardinal Nassoon has actually been gathering pieces and doing various rituals in order to start a gigantic doomsday machine. And the end of the battle at Concord Hill is, well, the Imperials managed to sway the population, but those who think that these guys are the bad guys, they escape onto these giant freighters that the Swords of Epiphany have and try to escape the planet. Turns out they're not really so much escaping as running into the thing that will deliver them to a big sacrificial pyre. Because in order to start this machine, Cardinal Nassoon has to sacrifice a fair few thousand people, as in, spill their blood, in order to start this doomsday machine. And it's not just like a tiny tractor of doom, it's like a small planetary system that's actually a machinery.
Yeah, and nobody knows who made it. It is never revealed who the creator was. It's just some ancient race that is lost to time.
Yeah, it's basically a planetary recycler consisting of, I think, 2 moon-sized adamantium planetoids or something like that, with a central command moon they pretty much orbit around. And as soon as the machine starts up and gets going, I think the whole picture of it was that those 2 adamantium planetoids grind against each other and literally eat planets.
Yes. So the basic description of this device, when all is said and done, it is a single planetoid that appears because of the whistle that went off at Phlebas. This is the control planet. It is started by putting people onto a platform that falls at breakneck speed towards the center of this planet and gushes them when it falls. And when it gushes them, the blood starts an engine which rings a colossal bell that reverberates through the warp and starts the other 2 planetoids, which are made of solid adamantium, spinning. And when they start spinning, they smack into each other and start grinding into each other in channels on the planet. And when that happens, all the people on those two planets are ground into pulp, thus feeding the machine further. This machine is a colossal 3-planet-sized people and planet eater, and it just eats and feeds itself through other planetary systems.
Yeah, you built a Death Star? That's cute.
Yeah, exactly. And the best part is that it fuels itself on the deaths of others.
Now, you could always ask, why the heck would anyone settle on these jagged adamantium thingies, which are basically long, jagged cylinders? And the description is that the jagged cylinders, they're kind of like mountains, but the tip of the mountain is so sharp that you could actually cut yourself on them. And the slopes are perfectly smooth, everything looks really shiny, but in the bottom of each of these valleys, there's the most fertile earth you can imagine. So the Imperium has actually established agro worlds on these two adamantium rollers.
And with a little bit of a sick imagination, you can totally derive where all this fertile sediment between those grinders comes from.
Yeah, it's bait.
In the worst kind. So, nice little chaos gods doing nice things for humanity.
Yeah. The people in those, let's call them valleys, that have settled there are pretty much oil on the machinery.
Right.
Yep.
So, I have a theory about this that is probably out there, but I would love you guys to entertain it for me.
Sure.
In my mind's eye, I actually saw spherical planetoids for these, and they remind me of old style printer font cartridges.
Ooh.
And I'm wondering if the author is kind of making a statement about writing pulp fiction.
You can ask
how
him.
It's like grinding him to a pulp, and what do you think?
Wow, that's deep. But you totally should ask him that when you interview him on Adapticon.
Yeah, I'm definitely good. I may buy one or try to find one and put it on the table and be like, "That's what it's about, right?" Anyway,
sort of sounds like an interrogation. What you're planning to do? Is that familiar to you, Mr. Annandale? Does that ring any bell to you?
Ring any bells? Da-dang, da-dang.
Okay.
Anyways, this mission is a simple one. It's really just basically the black dragons and the chaos, suggest 2,000 to 2,550 points. You definitely want to have Toharan there. You definitely want to have
Volos
there, both in their captain form, which we described in the last episode, where we have a captain and a sergeant version of both of them.
Yeah.
But 2 seconds here. Maybe we should introduce where this fight is?
Oh yeah, sure. Good point. This one's on the red planet that is controlling the spinning grinder of death.
It's basically a big temple with a giant organ, as in it's like a musical organ that you can play in order to control this thing.
Yeah, because the whole concept is not weird enough now. It is driven by a giant organ that Nassoon plays.
Yeah, and it's all ruined. This building, this temple has been ruined because the Black Dragons decided to throw a spaceship at it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's sort of not really necessary to mention anymore that it, eats Nassoon while he is playing it.
Yeah, it basically turns him into tough bone.
Yep. It sort of reminded me of the space jockey from the original Alien movie, in a way.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, as we mentioned before, this is sort of a straightforward confrontation between the loyalist Black Dragons and the Chaos Space Marines accompanied by the traitor Black Dragons following Toharan. And you have Volos and Toharan there in their captain forms, incarnations. We suggest to point out this battle around 2,000 to 2,250 points. And want to take it away with the Forces of Chaos, Snorre?
Sure. The Forces of Chaos should be represented by the Swords of Epiphany Chaos Space Marines now. Simply because there are no cultists left, it's just these Space Marines defending themselves against the Black Dragons trying to stop this Doomsday Machine. But the Swords of Epiphany now have a distinct siege feel to them, and the Chaos player should definitely use as many sorcerers as possible, and maybe even use the Thousand Suns rules to get them on the table. Additionally, at least one squad of Raptors and or Warp Talons should be used in the Chaos Force. As an allied detachment, and we're considering them Battle Brothers for the purpose of this scenario, they're joined by several tactical squads of traitors Black Dragons and Captain Toharan himself. Ledringer is not present at this battle. We also suggest leaving this one to the Astartes, as cultists do not make an appearance in this battle.
So the forces of the Imperium are led by Captain Volos, and compromised mainly of tactical squads too. But honestly, I feel like at this point you can get a bit lenient on force composition, and if you feel like it, just don't go armor heavy. Just focus on infantry. But if you don't want to have a clash of that many tactical squads, that's all right. Just fit it to your personal feel for the battle. And there's by the book there are Devastator squads and Dragon's Claws present too. Cthino is not present at this battle, and bringing a Thunderhawk as your Lord of War would fit the storyline here, but we only recommend doing this if you're playing a very big game. Like, let's say, if you actually push it to 2,500 or something like that, that might be adequate. In a pure 2,000 points game, a Thunderhawk is feels a bit misplaced. Takes away a lot from your army composition in general.
I agree. You know, we don't have to in detail recreate the entire battle. In the book, you know, in a book, the day is kind of saved by the Thunderhawk, and you really don't need to do that. You can just fight a normal battle.
Yeah, exactly. So for the battlefield, you can play this battle on whatever sized boards the players feel most comfortable with, or whichever size you have available, although a standard 4x6 table is recommended. 4-foot wide ring of ruins should be placed off-center and filled with wreckage and other debris to represent the outer walls of the ruined temple. The center of the temple is dominated by Nisun and the Skeletal Origin, which sounds like a real cool conversion or hobby project rather. I wish I had more time.
And you also talked about the space jockey from the Alien movie.
Exactly.
Feel free to go completely Giger on this.
Yes, definitely.
Totally. That's a piece of terrain you'll use for other stuff for sure.
Yeah, that would just... wow, that's so 40k. My head is about to implode. So, you have the deployment zone of the swords and the traitor Black Dragons on their short table edge and within 4 foot of it, so actually most of the table. Then the Space Marines... They're basically deployed to defend Nisun. Exactly. Then the Space Marines deploy within 12 inch of their short table edge, with at least 12 inch between the two concurring factions.
So yeah, this is supposed to be a representation of a battle where you have a legitimate attacker and defender. So you have a defender inside a very heavily defended, like a tightly defended zone with lots of terrain between, at the outer edge, and then you have an attacker in an open field. But the actual buffer zone is small, because there is a lot of cover and the attacker is able to advance quickly. So you could use this deployment for a lot of different kinds of scenarios where you have a legitimate attacker and defender. Snorri, do you want to move on to first turn and special mission rules?
Sure. On the first turn, the Chaos player may decide which side takes the first player turn, as they lie in wait in the wreckage of the temple, ready to strike anyone who enters. Mission special rules are as follows. Nisun is represented as an objective marker at the center of the Chaos deployment zone. For each turn the loyal Black Dragons hold or contest this objective, a unit may forgo their shooting phase and all attacks in the assault phase in order to add a damage token to the objective. When the objective has 3 damage tokens on it, Nisun has been killed. Next up is Toharan, the monster of Tzeentch. Now this one we need to playtest a little bit. We try to look at him, make him nice and everything, but we don't really know fully if he's just overpowered or underpowered or whatever. So give us feedback on this one, definitely.
Yes, please, feedback from everyone.
Yeah. So when Nisun is slain, he directs a final indignant bolt of change at Toharan, or his corpse if you manage to kill him already. And then he immediately starts to transform into a horrible creature. He becomes a demon prince of Tzeentch with 6 wounds, power armor, and no psyker levels. Every turn until he is slain, he gains an additional D3 wounds, +1 strength, and +1 toughness. So this is a race.
Yep, this is a boss fight.
The game is over when either all of the Black Dragons are slain or Nisun and Toharan are both dead.
The victory condition would be that if all the loyal Black Dragons are slain before they can stop Nisun, Chaos wins a crushing victory. If Chaos, on the other hand, can destroy Aig Mortis before Nisun is slain, Chaos scores a minor victory only. If the Black Dragons can stop Nisun before he destroys Aig Mortis, but are then killed in the process, the Imperium scores a minor victory. And if you go all out, and if the loyalist Black Dragons are able to not only stop Nisun, but also kill Toharan, they win a crushing victory. That would be the victory conditions for a scenario, and we feel like this is a real close representation of what's going on in the epic finale of the story.
Yep, and I hope that it does accurately represent that.
I'm still all captivated with the thought of converting Nisun on him, playing that organ in that skeletal, almost fossil-like way that it's described in the book. That's just would make for an excellent piece of objective.
Yeah, I wonder if we should try to do that for our annual release
for the compendium. Yeah, that would be one of the projects that would be most exciting, I think. But let's see what else we come across during the next few episodes of the Masters of the Forge.
Yeah. So I like this book. I thought it was a good fun for my first Space Marines novel. I think you guys picked a good one, something I can really sink my teeth into. I mean, I do think that the dichotomy element was very overplayed, but you know what? I enjoyed it. I don't think it was painful. So I really think it was fun, and it helped have a theme that you could count on. You know.
Yeah, it really drives the book forward.
Yeah, I think you can kind of expect the unexpected, really.
Yeah,
definitely.
But that's also really that was really one of the things that really inspired me to read on, because as you know that you have to have some kind of thing going on between each battle, and in this case, it's actually the problematic situation inside the chapter and the different people scheming to make the best of personal use of that schism forming.
Yeah.
So, and the Chaos plot also is very entertaining, because you think you have some idea of where this is going, and as soon as you get there, you're just like, what?
What I found very interesting about the Chaos aspect of this book would be the fact that for the longest time there's not a lot of, screaming about any kind of particular god. or any particular kind of typical influence, like dedicated to some specifics of one of the four chaos gods. It's left very much. It's left very much long in the dark, like whom they are actually serving. And I think you have a lot of touches of Tzeentch, but as it should be with like the Great Deceiver, it's never quite spelled out for you, like definitely. And from my experience, normally 40k stories have like much clearer hints at what kind of chaos power you're facing. But this one is a good bit more ambivalent in that purpose.
And I think that's has a lot to do with even Nassoon doesn't really know who he's talking to when he's meditating and talking with these warp entities.
Yeah.
He's just talking to some great inspiration. So it could be anyone for all he knows.
Yeah, exactly. I just liked to be not slapped with the god cliches into the face for a change. Like, okay, so that's the chaos influence that is responsible for this whole thing, so we can expect that and that and that. But it's rather much more, it has a very undivided feeling to it, and just, leaving the monstrous, ruinous power behind it all pretty much in the dark, and just letting it act through its followers makes the whole thing more scary in many respects, because the unknown is always more scary than the obvious.
Yeah, it really ties into the theme of the book too. Like right from the very start, when a 40k somebody who understands the 40k universe starts the book, they're thinking, oh, we're dealing with a Nurgle incursion, aren't we?
Exactly, and that's not at all what it is.
That is not at all what's happening here.
Yeah. Now, the whole symbolism with the contrast between the obviously unpure Black Dragons and their internal strife between factions who favor purity and factions who regard their gifts as like a condition bestowed upon them by the Emperor. And on the other hand, those, superficially purity mad chaos space marines, it's all not exactly subtle, but it's very effective, I think. I mean, subtlety, I wouldn't say that it's bad because the symbolism is driven home with a sledgehammer from time to time. I actually enjoyed it a lot, and a lot of that I credit to David Annandale's writing ability, because I feel like the locations and the twists and the artifacts and the goals of the characters and the perspectives get a bit muddled from time to time, and it gets maybe just a bit overcomplicated here and there. But on the other hand, David Annandale manages to write it in a way that just kept me going all the way through. He has a very good hand for just, compressing all that information into enjoyable scenes.
Cool. So what do you think, guys? You think you think we've talked Death of Antagonis to death?
Pretty much. Antagonist is definitely dead now.
Antagonizingly.
Stick a fork in it.
Before we close off this episode, I just gonna mention it myself, although I think you have mentioned it in episode 1 already. Canonist Sathano is, I think, the best written Sister of Battle I've ever read about, and I was literally on the edge of my seat in reading every scene she appears in. David Annandale should be totally writing like a pure Sisters of Battle book right now.
Your mouth to the Emperor's ears, my friend. That would be. I would read the living heck out of a Canonist Sathano novel.
Oh, definitely. So I think that covers it nicely so far. The book, and B, our approach of how to put it to life on your tabletop and get the maximum of game experience out of it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Again, everybody, be sure to try them out and tell us what you think, and also give us an idea of what in what way you found it useful, if you were able to take elements from these scenarios and use them in your own scenarios, or if you played them out, and if you had any issues arise during the game, please let us know.
Exactly. I'm not sure if it's been like explicitly mentioned before, but we will do some kind of regular compendium that will compress our supplemental rules, our scenarios, into a nice collected PDF. And until then, while we are accumulating that stuff, you're totally welcome to send in feedback, and we will definitely see that we mind your feedback when putting together that compendium style document. So if you have any good suggestions, or if you play tested this to death and see definite problems with it, make sure to let us know via Facebook or email.
Yeah. So if you haven't already liked us on Facebook, you can just look up Masters of the Forge on Facebook and you should find us.
I'm David Annandale, and you're listening to Masters of the Forge.
All right, I'm here with David Annandale, the author of Death of Antagonis. How are you doing, David?
I'm doing great.
I'm really glad you could make it here to have an interview with us and talk to our listeners about your novel. We're at Adepticon right now. How's your Adepticon going so far?
It's been a lot of fun.
What have you done so far?
A couple of signings yesterday and a preliminary wander around the rooms. I'll be planning on doing a more in-depth wander later today.
So have the fans been good to you?
Oh, they've been great.
Yeah. Of course, I wouldn't answer any differently. That's very good. Very, very good answer. So, David, was this your first Space Marines Battles book?
It was. In fact, it was my first novel for Black Library.
Right. It wasn't your first novel altogether, though, was it?
No, it was. I'd written, I guess it would be my fifth novel altogether. I had just actually sold my first horror novel when I also, a few months later, was commissioned to write The Death of Antagonis, based on a pitch that I sent them.
Well, that's very interesting. You have a horror background. That must have been actually a natural fit for you for the Black Dragons.
Yes, well, it was certainly my inclinations there that led me to the Black Dragons. My first love is horror, but I would say also one of the things that I love about the writing 40K fiction is that it's one-stop shopping for all my favorite genres. It's this delicious fusion of science fiction and horror and military battles, and it's such a vast fictional universe that you can get a little bit of just about everything in there, and it amazes me that this patchwork also feels like a coherent whole, which I think is the wonderful alchemy of 40K.
Yeah, it's almost a miracle.
Yeah, it's this all these parts that add up to something that is greater than the sum,
right?
But allow you to go in so many different directions.
Right. That's interesting. That are you a Cthulhian mythos?
Yeah, in fact, I have my Cthulhu mythos story out there. It's a story called Final Draft in the anthology Dead But Dreaming. So it's like almost any horror writer has to get that one at least one Lovecraftian story, if not more, out there. So yeah.
Final Draft, it's called.
Final Draft. Yeah, actually, I have there's another one that's the most directly Cthulhu oriented.
Right.
There's another mythos oriented anthology, Dead But Dreaming 2, which I have a piece in there as well.
Now that is very interesting, actually. The planetary system at the end, one could describe as some kind of cyclopean construct of Cthulhian nature.
Yeah, there's a definite Lovecraft influence going on there for sure.
Nice. So, for our listeners who are interested in getting into writing, how did you break into writing as your profession?
Well, it's something that I've wanted to do for really, almost all my life. I started writing my first story, oddly, perhaps not coincidentally, about a space monster when I was 6.
Nice.
But I sold my first, my first paid short fiction publication was in 91. But the first novel I sold was a full decade later. So it was a long process of writing and selling, submitting, rejected. So, of course, I should preface this by saying that the industry has changed, rather the whole writing scene has changed so much now. With the advent of the ebook, that for a lot of people it's going to be going to have a very different experience than what I did coming of age as a writer in the 90s, essentially. The other thing too is that as I said, my first love is horror, but I first started submitting novels in the early 90s, which was the era of the near extinction level event for horror fiction. It was a very, very dark time. And by the end of the 90s, I'd written 3 novel-length manuscripts, which I realized were just going to be gathering dust in the drawer. But I'd read a lot of thrillers at that time and was really enjoying them, and thought, okay, I'm going to try my hand at writing one of those, which was also a somewhat more stable market. And that was the book I then wrote. Crownfire was the first novel I sold. And so I then wrote a series of thrillers involving the rogue warrior Jen Blaylock, and through the early 2000s, I wrote 3 Blaylock novels: Crownfire, Cornucopia, and The Valedictorians, which have finally hit ebook form now also. And then then things changed quite dramatically with getting on with Black Library, and right after selling my first horror novel, Gethsemane Hall. And for Black Library, I had been eyeing wanting to submit something to them, and there was a call for submissions for what would become the Treacheries of the Space Marines anthology. They were looking for stories about one of 4 characters: Typhus, Lucius, Araman, and Karn. And I put together a pitch for a Typhus story, which would became the Carrion Anthem. Sent that in. A few months later, found out that they wanted it. So anyway, it went from there.
The rest is history. I've heard, please tell me if this is true or just true for some, but I've heard that in writing, the only thing more important than writing a lot is reading a lot.
Oh, definitely. Always read. I think if you are reading only in one genre, you are limiting yourself.
Right.
Because the thing is, any text is swimming in the sea of intertextuality. They're all being influenced by so many other things, and whatever you're reading in a given genre, that writers have been drawing on stuff from all over the place, right?
Right.
So if you take a look at what Graham McDill did in Fulgrim, there's all kinds of stuff from William Blake being used there when he's describing the excesses of the Emperor's Children. Right. So right there, that is so that we have even if you're reading nothing but the Horus Heresy, there's a book that is going to get added richness for you as a reader if you're also familiar with 18th century poetry. And as a writer, that then the richer your background in reading, the more varied and rich your imagination is going to be as well.
Right. Yeah. Forgive me for bringing up the novel or the writing boogeyman, but Stephen King. Yeah. He reads and writes romance novels and mysteries and all that. I mean, yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, that sounds about right. That rings true. Speaking of either inspiration or let me get to the meat of the question. It appears like as if, whether it's your personal style or a common, I don't see it in every novel I read, but the rote and common activities that are being performed, you seem to put forth in a very Hemingway-ish. I just adjectived Hemingway. Yeah. All right, that's fine. Very Hemingway-ish. Like you push it forward. Like these. Okay, nobody wants to read about how forcefully you push the big red button on the Exterminatus cannon, right? But but then you roll into descriptions like the one for the explosion of the plasma carrier, the plasma factory above Egg Mortis. How do you pronounce that, by the way? Eggy or Egg?
Egg.
Egg. Yeah. Oh, damn it. I'm losing a bet, I think. Anyways.
It's where the inspiration is the fortified city of Aigues Mortes in southern France.
Oh. So is that a common usage or style, or is that something that you do, or is that come directly from someone like Hemingway?
Well, I mean, certainly there's. It's a good question, and I guess there's a couple of ways of answering it. Is there is there a house style as far as Black Library is concerned? No.
Okay.
All the writers have different approaches, and one of the things that has been a great experience for me writing for them is the way I find myself being pushed creatively, and always being stretched in the best possible way. So and never just sort of resting on your laurels. And how can you tell the story in the most interesting way? And so the writing style that that you'll see in Death of Antagonis is different from what you'll encounter, for instance, in my story, my novella Mephiston, which is written first-person present tense, and the goal there was to make Mephiston sound. I wanted him to sound off-kilter, and I mean, this is a character who is unnerving for Space Marines, so he should, I feel, sound not like someone you're going to sit down and have a beer with, right? That he's seeing things in a somewhat almost alien way. So that changed the way I was describing that as well. For the when you talk about the explosion, for instance, in of the freighter, I wanted, I guess, there what I'm trying to reach for is the. I'm not sure if impressionistic is exactly what the word I want to use there.
Well, it's very like similar. Quite a. You don't overuse similes, and like some authors tend to overuse some things that are apparent in the mind's eye. If you hear what I hope I'm not describing it in the wrong way. Like sometimes folks will overuse descriptive text because it's not necessary. People know what things look like. Right. People know what an experience is like. But when you go into new experiences that people can't possibly understand, that's when you use your words. And I found that very interesting. And I found that maybe to be a good lesson for people to learn if they're if people are looking into learning how to write well.
Oh, well, thank you. And that certainly would be my hope that, yes, it's when I get to the exotic and the strange that, how am I going to convey this to the reader, right? How can we experience this together, as it were, right? And so I try to imagine if I'm picturing what this strange thing in my head, what would convey this weirdness and the in that particular example, the gigantic scale of what has happened. And so there's the reach for the image that I hope will capture that. Great.
So I'd like to quickly touch on the theme of Death of Antagonis, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. nothing is ever as it seems, or rarely, especially in the 41st millennium. And point after point after point after point in the book reflects this.
Yeah.
Would you like to embellish upon that?
Well, in fact, when you were, when you were in your earlier podcast, when you were talking about the theme of duality, and that is very much what I was interested in exploring there. And there's a paradox that I find very appealing with the Black Dragons, in that they especially the dragon claws, they look like monsters, right? They are regarded with deep suspicion by the Inquisition and the Mechanicus. I mean, there's something that's not right here, and yet they are loyalists. So right there's a they contain opposites in some way.
Yeah, they are the living embodiment of duality in this novel.
Yeah, and so I suppose the way that finally crystallizes for me is in the scene where Citheno is telling Volos, this is what you have to be, the necessary monster.
Yeah.
And that monstrosity is something that has fascinated me all my life.
Right.
And that I return to again and again in almost everything that I write, whether it's 40K or not. 40K gives me wonderful ways of exploring monsters, right? Because there's so many different kinds of monster in every sense of the word, right?
Yeah.
And so in the Death of Antagonis, I can also have different kinds of the necessary monsters, right? The Black Dragons look monstrous. They are, but there's the possibility that they might be genetically linked to the salamanders, right?
Yeah.
And of course, in the salamanders, you have one of the more noble chapters of the Space Marines, right? The chapters who are actually going to care about civilians.
Yeah.
And so, if there is some kind of a link there, I mean, that suggests a possible nobility too in the Black Dragons, at odds with their appearance.
Yeah.
And so with Citheno, we have a different kind of necessary monster, right? The figure who will do whatever has to be done to save the Imperium, however monstrous that is, and so it.
She even wears a mask so people know, so they're not confused by her actual appearance. No,
right.
This is who you're dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, her helmet is monstrous.
Yeah.
And the way she pushes Volos is towards, in some ways, having to embody what he resembles.
Yeah, be who you are.
Yeah, and you are a monster, right? Now, which isn't to say that it's pushing towards the kind of excesses that one of the other chapters I've written about are the Kakaradons, who are going to be much more just vicious, right? That is certainly not what I see Volos as wanting to be, but there's a necessary inhumanity to some of the things that he's going to have to do.
Right. So I was going to say something glib about Gooble Gobble, one of us here, when talking about monsters, but I think it's actually an important point. Do you think that the novel could possibly have a message for people who feel kind of turned away? And I'm not talking about the Black Dragons versus the Imperium. Right. I'm talking about the story of Toharan as kind of a cautionary tale. Tell me if I'm reading too much into it, but Toharan and people like him felt like they were being pushed out, like they were less than the rest of the Black Dragons, and that was used to cause them to fall to chaos. Yeah. And I'm wondering if, on the opposite, kind of like on the flip side, people of my background and a lot of the folks who play this game and read the novels might feel like that's their lives, and maybe it is easy to fall into a pit of negativity towards the world because of it, and that way really only leads to more misery. Am I reading too much into it?
It's a really good question, and I mean, I don't think you can say that you're reading that you'd be reading too much into it, right? I mean, there's always going to be any text ultimately escapes the writer's control, right? There will be more in that winds up in a text than we can possibly think that we've put in. That's just the nature of it's the nature of writing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, this is when my day job is a university instructor, and so teaching English literature, we're going to be delving into things that there's certainly no way that the writers could possibly have intended, right? But intention is in many ways is irrelevant, right? Now, I was definitely exploring the kinds of mechanisms that you're describing there. Was I intending that specifically as a message? I don't think that I was, but that doesn't mean that it didn't wind up in there.
Right. When art belongs to you until it's published to the world, right?
Yeah. and there were certainly there were things even when I was going back and revising, discovering that the particular ideas that I realized that were now had arrived in there that I hadn't noticed the first time around, and that I then punched up some more. And you see, the thing with the disciples of purity, and this comes back to the duality as well, and the flip side of the other side of monsters is that on the one hand, by virtue of the fact that he's not mutated, Toharan feels rejected in some way, that he is not. Fire and bone doesn't mean quite the same thing to him, because he doesn't have that bony outgrowth.
Mm-hmm.
And so within the context of the Black Dragons, yes, there's a sense of not being quite there. On the other hand, the wider context in which the Black Dragons exist, which rejects them in turn, then becomes this this other thing that Toharan plugs into, and the rejection that as he falls to chaos, he then views what felt like a lack in himself within Black Dragons as in fact a mark of superiority.
Mm-hmm.
So he then also he becomes a representative in some way of a majority that would reject the Black Dragon. So we get the mechanism working at in a number of different ways there. I guess to come back to where your question ended, I would say that if anyone read the book and it spoke to them at that level, that if they had felt for whatever reason that whoever they were was made them the subject of rejection, and look, heaven knows how many people that this has happened to, and and obviously I'm speaking from a position of privilege, so I am lucky in that cis straight white male. I'm as has been pointed out before, I'm living life on easy mode here.
Yeah.
But if someone can take what happens in the book as that speaks to them in their story, that it is helpful to them in any way, then I would be beyond delighted.
Yeah, I think it really speaks to the Space Marines Battles books don't just have to be bolter porn. It can be. It can have a deeper message, and it can have some wonderful moments. And as a first time Black Library reader, as kind of a noob to all this, I can definitely give the recommendation on not just this novel, but try them all out.
There's so much wonderful work being done in the books that it's certainly been very exciting to me to be able to be among these other writers.
Great. All right. I have one last crazy town theory
Go for
that
it.
I'd like to throw at you.
the old IBM cartridge based typewriter font globes. Do you remember them?
Oh, you mean for the for the big electric typewriters?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, as for the grinder.
Is there some kind of message there?
Yeah, that one. It never occurred to me.
Curses once again thwarted.
I mean, now that you pointed out,
maybe there's some subliminal.
Well, I mean, who knows? Because we see what I'm sitting here now. I'm trying to run. Okay, how exactly did I come up with that? What was the? As I'm trying to put when the image came to my mind of those grinding globes and I can't think of what would have been the source of that. So, and the thing is, I'm certainly old. I mean, that I learned to type on one of the. Well, I was taught to type on one of those. So
that's even you were instructed.
So this is going back to high school now, but
maybe we've uncovered something here. This has been a good session for you.
That's right. Yes, I feel so much better now. It's been a breakthrough.
All right, so let's move on. Let's change some gears and talk about some stuff that you have coming up, or even since Death of Antagonis is your first novel, maybe talk about what if someone were really interested in the style and wanted to read something similar, maybe suggest one of your novels and then tell us about anything new that's coming out.
Well, I guess I'll take that in a couple of different ways. Certainly, if anyone wants to see what happens next with the Black Dragons, there's a short story that came out a few weeks ago, the Tribute of Flesh, which it's available as a standalone ebook, and it picks up the story after the Death of Antagonis.
Oh, that's awesome!
Find out what Volos and, in particular, what happened to Nithik after the end of that book. So. You can see the Black Dragons up against the Dark Eldar.
I had no idea there was another story. That's great. Yeah. I'll pick that up right away, actually.
Yeah. My big focus, or as far as novels, or since the Black Dragons, is the biggest focus, I should say, probably has been Commissar Yarrick, and beginning with Chains of Golgotha, which was a novella. Describing his captivity when Ghazghkull Thraka takes him prisoner on his Space Hulk.
And that crazy friendship that develops from that.
So whatever you want to call it. I mean, I remember when I first picked up a 40K rule book, and in the timeline, there was this entry about Ghazghkull Thraka captures Commissar Yarrick, but then releases him because he's planning to invade Armageddon again and wants a good fight. And I remember looking at that and just being fascinated by that one and wondering, well, what's the story? I would really love to know the story. It never occurred to me that a couple of years later I'd be writing that story.
That is awesome. I have got to read that book because for me too, it's really fascinated me that one of the things I like about orcs is that story that Commissar Yarrick is the closest thing to a friend that an orc war boss has.
Which would utterly horrify Yarrick, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not mutual, believe me.
You took my hand. Oh, fantastic! That sounds like it's going to be an awesome read.
So that was that, and a little short called Evil Eye, where I began with Yarrick. But this month, and in fact available here, my first Yarrick novel comes out, Imperial Creed. And for that, we're going all the way back to the beginning Well, actually, Steve Barker had a story that goes all the way back to the beginning, Survivor, which is Yarick as a child. But this is the story of Yarick's first mission as commissar. So he has 2 arms in this one.
Huh, good for him.
He has no idea the hurt that's down the road. If the readers take to it, is just the first of a long series of Yarick novels.
That's awesome.
So that's out now, and then in July, my first Horus Heresy novel comes out, The Damnation of Pythos.
Oh, all right.
And that's a tale of the Shattered Legions, this particular group led by some Iron Hands.
Great. May I end the interview with a demand?
Absolutely.
When are you going to write a novel about Canoness Sethana?
Well, she's back in Imperial Creed.
No kidding.
Yeah. She is. I have to say, I had a lot of fun writing. I had a great time writing her in Death of Antagonis, and so she is now part of the Yarick story. So
That is going to be so great. Now, there's no question to it. I have to read that book too. That is awesome. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. All right. Thank you so much, David. I really appreciate you coming to be with us. Is there anything you want to say before we close the interview?
Well, I guess we covered a lot of it. If people want to hear more of me online, I'm a regular on the Skiffy and Fanty podcast.
SCIFF?
SKIFFY.
Okay.
And yeah, there's a lot more Black Library stuff coming out. In fact, you can also currently get my next Space Marine Battles works 3 linked novellas describing the struggle against the Overfiend of Octavius.
That sounds right down your alley.
It's White Scars, Raven Guard, and Salamanders against Orcs.
Fantastic.
With the Eldar mixing it up in there too.
Fantastic. Oh, you're doing a lot of orc stuff. Maybe we can get you to write the origin. Well, my mouth to Black Library's ears, I suppose. All right, thanks a lot, David.
Thank you so much.
Our next episode will be about rather more recent publication in the realm of GW products, namely Codex Crimson Slaughter.
You should also check us out on the Overlords podcast. It was probably released before this episode, but if you're not a frequent listener of the Overlords, first of all, you're wrong. Second of all, we are going to be on it as in an interview.
So much for not pimping the Overlords too much, huh?
Yeah. Then again, by the time episode 1 has been released, that interview will already have aired.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if people haven't heard it yet, go ahead and check it out.
Yep.
All right, everyone. Goodbye. Until next time, play the game the way you want to.
This podcast is protected by the Creative Commons Attribution, No Derivatives, Non-Commercial, International License. More information about this license and contact information if you have any requests can be found at our blog, mastersoftheforge.com. The music used in this podcast was made by Parad of the duo Sublevel 3. The track is used with his permission.
And that's pretty much it for this apocalyptic battle.
Yeah, the rules are meant to be, very... My cat is sneezing. This is meant to be as simple as possible when you're playing with this many models. Jesus Christ. Fritz.
Adam, I think it was much more fun when you had Buddy visiting.
Oh, yeah?
Because he was like that.
Yeah, right.
It's like, oh my god, someone's petting me.
So great. So I let me try that again.
As an allied detachment, Battle Brothers. Okay, yeah. As an allied detachment. Why do I say attachment? It's not an attachment; it's a detachment.
It's a delayed attachment. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's Battle Brothers for the purpose of this scenario. They are joined by several tactical marine squad. Bleh. Seriously, I'm tongue twisted now.
Not, I totally lost it. I'm laughing so hard behind my push to talk button.
He's thinking of my tight package.
Yep. I'm being distracted by a sexy Adam.
Now, I lost my train of thought. Sorry, guys.
No problem.
If you need help, I can always email you a flashlight. They're joined by several tactical squads of the treacherous... of the traitorous...
Treacherous was fine, actually.
Exactly.
It actually was fine.
But they're not treacherous, they're traitorous.
They're sort of both.
Not really.
It's okay, buddy. Keep going. Up, traitor.
Yeah.